everyone, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I've got a really fun, quick and easy one for you to create some really unique backgrounds that kind of have an artsy fartsy feel to them that are quite simple and quick to do. So I'm going to use food colouring again tonight. You could use ink refillers or watercolour paints, anything water soluble you can use. I'm using this little blowy thing where you kind of pump air on it, but you could use a straw. And I'm not using a straw in the video because I find I get really lightheaded really quickly, and also I didn't want my camera or my head in the camera shot the whole entire time I'm making this content. So I've got that little hand kind of pump thing that you could originally put pens in and then kind of make splatters on your paper with. So if you've got one of those, you could use that. If not, use a straw, works just the same. The first thing I'm going to do is take a standard size card panel for the front of my card. I'm going to trim it down so I've got a little border, and then I'm going to use an acrylic block, but anything that is non-porous like a piece of acetate will work. And I am going to put down some of my color onto my block, and I'm going to add some water to it. So if you are doing this with watercolor paints, you obviously don't need to worry about that because you're adding water anyways. I just find that this kind of dilutes your color a bit more, and then it kind of helps the color to spread a bit. Otherwise you get a very dark, deep concentration of color because these are food coloring, so they are very, very concentrated. So adding water just makes them kind of flow a bit more. Once I've dotted some color on, I'm going to go ahead and spread out my color by using the blowy thing. I don't know what it's called, so we're just going to call it that. And I apologize if it sounds inappropriate, if your mind strays that direction, but it is just like a air pumpy thing for your hand. And that's what I'm using. Now I'm adding on one color at a time, and I am drying in between if it's not drying enough, just so that I can have some of the color merge, but a lot of the color stays separate. And with this one, it didn't quite work out. I'll show you in just a minute what I mean, but I picked up some kind of funky, weird cardstock. I thought it was watercolor card, and it was not. So this color was just not drying. I was drying it with the heat gun, and I was thinking it was maybe drying. It was still staying shiny. I left it overnight. I left it about 16 hours, and this is it the next day. It's still wet. I can touch it, it's still wet. I don't know what kind of magic card this is, but it resisted everything. So I did it again on watercolor card, and this was the result. I left it the same concentration. I did about 2 drops food coloring, about 3 or 4 drops of water. And obviously if you've got a paintbrush, you could do it with a paintbrush. You don't need to use a little pipette thing like I did. You can use a paintbrush and water. On the left is where I used 1 drop of food coloring and about 5 or 6 drops of water. So you can see the concentration just kind of goes out of it a bit. It becomes a lot more translucent, which is lovely. So it depends on what you kind of like. That's what you can kind of, the results you can kind of get. Now, if you only have watercolor paints, it works a dream as well. I'm just adding lots of water onto that top of that paint, and then I'm blowing around that color as well. And it just kind of gives you this artsy fartsy sort of splattery look, and it works really well if you have a straw. It works really well with anything that you can kind of add water to dilute it and make it kind of flow a bit more. Obviously re-inkers work as well, as long as they are dye ink re-inkers. If you've got a pigment ink re-inker, you can't add water to it. It's going to be very thick and it's not going to move about. So here are my end ones. I'm really pleased with how they looked. I picked the top 2 favorites, and I decided to make some Christmas cards out of them. Now this is a new set to me, given to me by Catherine Pooler, and I thought I would use it today along with the new color from her collection, which is the copper ink. And to add to that kind of metallic feel, I thought I would get out my metallic paints and then just do a whole bunch of splatters of gold along the background. I felt like that kind of pulled that metallic color in a bit more, because I decided to die cut out the deers as well, which then I can then use some foam tape behind and pop them up. So I was lazy and I didn't want to cut out all these pieces individually, and I didn't want to lose any of them, so I just die cut all of them out in one go, which then gives you a really awesome template. So if you've got a stamp platform, you can go ahead and put your template back in, line your stamps up over the empty holes of where your die cuts went. And then that way it's just so much easier to line up the stamps. This is something I learned from Jennifer Maguire years ago. You can line those stamps up beautifully inside your stamp platform in those open holes. And then when you put your cardstock back in, it fits like a puzzle, and you know it's going to line up perfectly every single time. So sometimes when I do this, I will then go ahead and make a whole bunch in one go. And then that way I don't have to worry about stamping and die cutting again. But I do prefer to die cut first, stamp after. I just find I get a much better placement. And I did the same thing with my sentiments, which you won't see me do, but it has a die set that coordinates with the sentiments, and I just find it so much easier to just die cut out, create that sort of base platform that I can stick in my stamp platform, and then put the sentiments in and stamp them. So I've gone ahead and finished off the cards because I did leave these to dry overnight because the metallic ink stays quite sticky for quite a long time. This is the stamp and die set I used for finishing off my cards. I kept it really simple. I popped those deers up on some foam tape, and I popped the sentiment up on foam tape as well, and added a few sort of water droplet gems across the front of the card, and I obviously backed them onto a bit of blue cardstock on a card base. So super simple and easy, a fun different kind of look for a background. This would work really great for masculine cards and feminine cards as well, for birthday cards, Christmas cards, any occasion. It works brilliantly. Hope you enjoyed this short one with me tonight. I can't wait to see you again next week. Have a fantastic weekend. Take care. Bye.